opening at the top of the cliff. That's our way in.
Recore is the creation of Armature Studio, the talent that brought you the Metroid Prime series, and Concepts KJ Inafune. If that name sounds familiar to you, the reason is he's the name behind the recent Kickstarter release Mighty No. 9. While Mighty No. 9 didn't wow critics, even though I enjoyed it quite a bit, Inafune has also done work on the Dead Rising series, Onimusha, Soul Sacrifice, and of course the Mega Man series. So, from Mighty No. 9 to Mega Man, where does Recore fit on the Inafune scale?
Mac, listen. You hear that?
This is my review of Recore on the Xbox One. I said on the Xbox One purposely because it'll be important later. Okay. Recore stars Jewel, a volunteer sent from Earth to Far Eden, who's been waiting in cryosleep, along with other volunteers, for an army of machines to terraform this new planet and make it inhabitable for humans. To her surprise, when she awakes, the robots have gone rogue. Sound familiar? Along for the ride is Mac, a robot core with the shell of a dog. Together they travel the desert plains of Far Eden, discover more versatile friendly robots, and attempt to save what's left of Far Eden.
Jump on!
I would go more into the story, but there isn't much here to sink your teeth into. It's a great concept that is fleshed out more through a few cutscenes and well-done audio logs, but regardless, I left Recore wanting more from its story, in the best way. Recore is an action, adventure, shooter, platformer, collectathon, open-world game with RPG elements. Some of these genres worked better together than others. The combat is fast-paced and hectic. It's all about matching your ammo to the color of the enemy. It sounds easy enough, but multiple enemies, ones that change color, and some other neat mechanics that I won't spoil, are used to mix up the combat and keep you on your toes. On top of that, you have to make the decision whether to drain a foe's health or to play a game of tug of war, each yielding different rewards. It's a simple premise, and it's a lot of fun. Recore excels at combat in small numbers as well as boss battles, though it can be a little overwhelming when the screen is flooded, as Jewel's recovery time is borderline non-existent, which may lead to some quick deaths.
Hard.
That's strange. I wonder what happened.
As far as platforming goes, Jewel can jump, double jump, dash, and use her robotic buddies to maneuver around the wastelands of Far Eden, or far more interestingly, around the dungeons or hidden time trials that seem much more streamlined for this kind of gameplay. While doing some of these moves out in the open world, I almost always felt like I went somewhere that the game didn't expect me to be. Once in a while, I'd be surprised to find a chest with blueprints, which are used to strengthen your robotic companions, or met with a glitchy mess, radiation kills due to area boundaries, or just an invisible wall. The controls for both shooting and jumping feel tight and responsive, though they don't work well in unison. However, it seems like the game designers were aware of this, as very few sections of the game require both at once. Mechanically, the game is great, the world is interesting, and the characters are lovable. Where Recore falters is its presentation and execution. The first few hours with Recore are fantastic.
But I won't be able to fix it here. Can you make it back to the crawler? Okay. Let's go home.
A well-guided story through dangerous dungeons with light mixtures of combat, exploration, puzzle solving, and platforming. Somewhere along the way, Recore's story and urgency take a backseat. Restrictions on progress start forcing you to venture outside into, their words, the optional content of the game. This is where the game plays more like a PS2 character-based platforming game. With that comes all the frustrations of games from that genre. Collecting a certain number of cores to proceed, finding health enhancements, running bonus challenges, not to mention level requirements, because this game also has a forced RPG leveling system. Recore's open world just isn't very fun after a while. It could be, but it's missing some key elements that would make it feel mildly rewarding. My biggest gripe is that of the minimap, or lack thereof. Constantly opening and closing your map is cumbersome, and the maximum zoom size on the map still has icons clashing up against one another. I never felt confident I was looking at exactly what I should be looking for, and a simple minimap could have made the experience at least that of average. On top of that, the icons don't appear unless you're right on top of the point of interest in question, forcing you to aimlessly wander around Far Eden. Traversal is slow, even with dashing. Open stretches become tests of will and patience. And speaking of testing your patience, this is where Recore's biggest flaw is revealed. Recore's poor Xbox optimization loading screens can take up to 2 minutes, and each area has its own loading screen. Want to deposit your limited inventory of collected items at your base? Loading screen. Want to leave said base? Loading screen. Want to fast travel to the story dungeon you just left? Loading screen. On top of that, the game suffers from frame rate drops as well. Recore isn't a pretty game, and I don't have a problem with that. But usually, what is sacrificed in visuals is to keep a solid, stable game, which isn't the case here. Freezing, crashing, texture pop-ins, falling through geometry, all happen to me at one point or another while playing. This is why I brought up the caveat about reviewing the Xbox One version of the game, as the PC version overall seems to be a better experience. Recore to me is one of two things. Either a solid, fun, and enjoyable 6-hour linear story game with rewards for exploring outside the direct path that was bloated and bogged down with long stretches of nothing, fetch quest requirements, and restrictions on the amount of robots and therefore abilities you can have at one time, forcing you to constantly regroup, in order to extend gameplay to that 15-hour game or so. Or an unfinished 15-hour-long open-world exploration game with hidden treasures to find and dungeons to explore, all while embarking on a save-the-world quest. The latter seems to be most likely, as certain areas of the game are missing basic things, such as an exit. And mild spoilers here for what's not in the game. You see that robot on the cover? He's a requirement for some of the items in the game, areas on the map that are not accessible in any other way. Oh hey look, the game loaded! Enemy designs in the game typically reflect those of your ally bots, and surprise surprise, one of them is a tank. And loot drops pertaining to his specific model in-game. However, he is nowhere to be found. Will he be addressed as free DLC soon? Possibly. Call me crazy, but having something so baked into the game to the degree of not being able to 100% it or collect every achievement because the content is missing doesn't sound like a free DLC plan. It sounds like cut content that didn't make release day. Did I mention that he's on the cover of the game? This would explain all this poor optimization. I could see a patch coming out fixing many of the problems I had with Recore, and I welcome it. However, at this point, this is what Microsoft, Armature Studio, and Concept provided to the public to spend their money on, and I will review it as such. Recore is a good game with great ideas. Heck, it may even be a great game with amazing ideas. However, neither potential is reached, as bugs and performance problems, as well as an overstuffed second half, drags down Recore from an excellent opening to an unenthusiastic screeching halt of a finale. Recore gets an average 5 out of 10.